Here's Brandon Geyer, Major League Mindset, but Herndon High, UVA, big leagues with the Rays and also the Indians, was drafted by the Cubs. So, Brandon, thanks for jumping on with me.
Yeah, Ryan, thanks for having me on. Pumped.
What'd you think of the Youth Summit?
I was great. I think it's needed now more than ever. Some great minds were there. I haven't talked with you in a while, so good to reconnect with you. And you know what Rob's doing locally and nationally, Rob Haney, that is, it is great. And you know what's going on with the youth. I feel like those summits like that and really trying to get answers to, keep kids playing baseball, especially at the young level, not have that burnout, and just help them with the overall stress and pressure that comes along with it, and really try to alleviate and help them with that. So I thought it was great.
Yeah, that number pops out when you think about we have 4 million kids that play baseball, and then when they get to the big field, that kicks back to 2 million. So even if you could cut that number in half, you've got a million
Hmm.
more kids playing baseball longer. The byproduct of that is maybe they don't play high school or college, but they have a good experience and they want to be
Hmm.
involved with the game somehow. I think there's some
Hmm.
long-term athlete development pieces to all of that. If you can keep kids playing sports longer, they're going to be healthier later on in
Hmm.
life physically. They're going to want to work out more. So I just think there's a lot of benefits to that where if we can work from
Hmm.
the ground up, it just helps the game at every level going forward.
Yeah, and I didn't even know about those numbers,
Yeah,
but
it's
you're
wild.
spot on because if we can continue to have them play as they go up, especially high school and whatnot, yeah, it directly translates to life because it's a game of failure. So life, there's going to be massive amounts of adversity. So if they can play baseball and teach them how to handle that in a good way, but then it's going to translate to everything that they do. So right there with you.
Tommy John at 12. I mean, that was
Yeah.
that was eye opening for me because I mean, you hear it, but you don't. I've never met anybody that had it at that age. And I mean, what helped you get through? I mean, walk us through that process a little bit. You pop your elbow and just trying to get back
Hmm.
from that.
Yeah, that was my Reston Herndon Little League days in Northern Virginia. And, back then, pitch counts weren't really a thing. I pitched, go play catcher or shortstop the next day. And, you're young, you think you can get away with it. It caught up to me and ended my pitching days. But, is what it is. But what helped me get through it? Good support system, a great doctor, great physical therapist. It was a grind. It was a grind, but I think when you have that good support staff, I don't know what your support system around you that encourages you, and I was still trying to stay active and do other sports. And it actually led me to doing some other things and getting into school actually more because I had more time on my hands. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise. Obviously, at the time, man, I thought I was going to be this, you know, ace pitcher in the big leagues, and that ended the pitching career. But, such things happen in life. So you just got to keep pushing through. And that's what I try to do.
How long did it take you to get comfortable again with throwing a baseball?
Um, I would say at least a year. I think I pitched on and off after that a little bit, but it was never the same for whatever reason. And so I just became that position player. But it took a little bit. But like I said, I had a fortunate, great physical therapist, and maybe because I was younger, I bounced back maybe a little bit quicker than some who are a little older who get it. So it worked out.
More pliable.
Hmm.
Did you feel like football helped you?
I do. Mentality wise. Um, I always tell people I had more fun playing football than I did baseball. I mean, I love baseball, but something about football, the physicality, um, the team camaraderie, the Friday night lights, the two-a-day practices. Like I know it's a grind and people don't like it, but I freaking love that stuff. So I think it helped a lot, and I think it also helped not playing baseball year round. I think that leads to overuse injuries. And I know I say that knowing I had a lot of surgeries, but high school, first year I played football, then basketball, then baseball. That was a little bit too much, but being able to play other sports and not just play baseball year round didn't get burnt out playing one sport. So it kept everything fresh. But in total, I'm so glad and that freshman year of high school was the very first year I played football. I never played growing up. I was playing all the other sports. And that's something I recommend to all athletes is to be that multiple sport athlete, play all of them. You never know which one you're going to fall in love with, which one could be, maybe the one that sticks with you and you can continue to develop and go far. So recommend that. And yeah, love football and miss it. That's why when I played, maybe I got hit a lot because I missed the contact in football. So I got hit by a pitch a lot and ran into walls a lot because I missed that contact. I kind of wish they kept the running over the catcher rule because I would have loved that as well. But yeah,
And I think it
absolutely love
introduces kids to
football.
the weight room earlier too. I think it gets
Hmm.
kids. Football's been training way longer than a lot of the other sports. I think it does introduce kids to the weight room. For right or wrong, football program's not always going to be beneficial for a baseball player, but it does introduce kids to the weight room a little bit earlier too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's always going to help for sure.
You were a big name coming out. I mean, I was still at JMU when you were coming out. I mean, besides UVA, what other schools were you looking at in the
Hmm.
recruiting process?
JMU for sure. Trying to think what other one. NC State was up there, Clemson, a good amount of others. But the backstory to that is no one was talking to me before after my junior year. So basically, my first 3 years very average. As a junior, I think it hit 270. But towards the end of that junior year, read this book, Heads Up Baseball, as I was struggling that junior year. Finally, it clicked. I went on a summer showcase tour, made the Commonwealth Games and then the East Coast Showcase. And the only reason that happened is because everything finally clicked. Like I thought I had the physical skills. Finally, everything came out. And then that junior summer, it clicked thanks to the book by Ken Revisa, Heads Up Baseball. And then started talking to you, started talking to UVA, all these other colleges. But if I didn't make that mindset shift, absolutely no way you and I'd be talking right now. The career I had, everything would have changed. So yeah,
Mine
that's
was
kind of how
Mental
it
Game of
happened.
Baseball by Dorfman, and then I started to do
I
progressive
got
muscle.
that. Yeah, love
I,
it
I
too.
started to do progressive muscle relaxation techniques. We had this audio cassette that we had a doctor that was our trainer, Dr. Montrestel at Memorial High School. I played for my high school coach, Coach Don Mattingly, also. But just luckily that Coach Montrestel found this peak performance audio, and this is in 1991, I think,
Wow,
1991,
way ahead of the
summer
time.
91, 92, and luckily found both of those. And same thing, I was very marginal up until my senior year of high school, and that was all of the mental stuff that I was doing, and they carried it over into college, and my teammates would look at me crazy like, what are you doing? I'm like, this stuff works. Like,
Hmm.
I'll make copies of this cassette tape for you if you want, but I think that's the one thing that helps me more than anything and allowed me to
Hmm.
stay on track. I think we're always going to get sidetracked as athletes and as people, and
Hmm.
those were kind of my go-tos to help me get back on track when I needed to.
Yeah, that's great. And even nowadays, it's talked about more. But if you bring up mention to some athlete who's never even really known much about it, they all of a sudden they just think you're like someone who's doing yoga or trying to levitate in the Himalayan mountains. It's not that. I like to call it the focus gym where you're building those focus muscles
Yeah.
where present moment focus in the game of baseball is super important. So that directly translates. So like what you were talking about with the, relaxation techniques and all that, this stuff all translates to on and off the field, which, what else can you
I
ask for?
still use those techniques. I mean, I speak a lot and I'm out a lot, and I still use all of those techniques now. And I think it's a way to allow your best self to show up every day. You're not never going to be at 100%, but it at least
Hmm.
gets you close to your best each and every day to be able to show up when you need it.
Dude, having those tools is huge, whether
Yeah.
it's just utilizing your breath the correct way. It's going to change how you respond physiologically and psychologically, without a doubt.
For a kid that's going to play college sports, any college sport, female, male, should the expectation be that it's going to be bumpy when you show up on campus?
Yeah, the expectation should be it's going to be bumpy all the whole journey.
Yeah.
I have a lot of signs in my office behind the screen. And the one I look at all the time and have for a long time, ever since I heard it, it's not supposed to be easy, literally written on there. So whenever, a lot of young athletes, I feel like, I don't know if it's entitlement or whatever it is, they expect, on this hero journey or on this journey to be great, that it's supposed to be easy, that it's not supposed to be challenging. Watch any Marvel movie. Your superheroes going through challenges, but that's what makes them stronger, and that's what makes them come out and use everything as fuel for their growth to be great. So whether it's high school, whether it's college, whether it's youth ball, whether it's minors or pro ball, it's supposed to be hard. It's not supposed to be easy. So once we shift from resisting that, and now the opposite, we accept it, everything changes. We go from a victim to a warrior mindset. And then we show up as our best self, like you were talking about, more and more consistently, because we know it's not supposed to be easy. So I think that's a huge thing, no matter what level you're at. And when they can get this, that mindset, and also a win or learn mindset, knowing we're not going to win all the time, going to fall short, going to make mistakes, not going to be perfect. See, the perfectionist, which I certainly, in high school, I was this perfectionist with a fixed mindset and absolutely no identity. It's not a good combo. That's not a combo I would recommend those first 3 years. So I learned a while back, you can be a perfectionist and have very high standards and think you're going to hit them all, or you can be the opposite and be an optimalist, have very high standards, but rub it up against reality, knowing you're not going to hit them all and you're going to fall short and you're going to fail and make mistakes. And when you do that, you then more consistently play free and loose, and then pressure melts away because oh, I don't have to be perfect. If I fall, then it's all about learning and rising stronger than I ever have. But if I fall and I don't learn, then I rise the same or weaker than I was before. So using those obstacles, and I like to say it's written on this wristband, ohms. It's the mantra of Major League Mindset. Obstacles make me stronger. So obstacle comes your way, challenge comes your way. Thank you, universe. You're literally giving me something to make me stronger right now. If athletes can approach it that way, then that's what happens. But too many athletes, and I was certainly guilty of this at times when I was younger, we resist it and we think that shouldn't be happening, but it should. If you're on the true journey to be great and be your best self, it's going to be challenging. And real quick before I wrap it up, a quote that's always stuck with me. On this journey to be great, we're not sidestepping lizards. We're battling dragons. So expect scars and wear them as medals.
Yep.
Okay. So once athletes realize we're not sidestepping lizards, oh, it's not going to be easy. I'm battling dragons. Okay, good. Bring it on. This is what I trained for. I want this. It's going to make me stronger. Thank you, universe. Give me all you got. I'm ready for it. So that's how I kind of think about all that stuff.
What role do parents play in all this? How can parents help?
I think them understanding, I think the biggest thing, taking pressure off the kids, whether it's the car ride home, whether it's the phone call after a game. I was so blessed with a father
Because I
who,
was going to ask you, how did your parents handle your playing?
yeah, my father was, he didn't care what I played. First of all, I could go for 4 strikeouts. We didn't really talk about it in the car ride home, unless I brought it up. So I think a lot of parents will, make an 0 for 4 game feel like an 0 for 8 because they're, shaming and bashing these players. But I think what we want to do is really build them up and give them as much confidence as they can after a tough game. One of the best managers, two, Joe Madden and Terry Francona. You could be struggling, do all that. You come back to the dugout, they're picking you up, they're building your confidence. So I think as parents, we want our kid, obviously we all want our kid to play great. To help them do that, let's take pressure off them. Let's not scold them. Let's bring them up. Let's build their confidence. And in any way they can do that, that's when their player is going to succeed. They're going to have more fun. And when that happens, they play at their best.
Now, you played for a good staff at UVA, but those guys, as well as I know them, they're not scared to challenge people. Like, with that staff there, they get a lot out of their players, but it doesn't always seem like it's lovey-dovey. It's more of a challenge. Like, okay, here's what we need to do. Just talk about that stuff a little bit. They're really good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, pretty much the whole staff's there since I was the first recruiting class in 2005. Coach K's left,
Yep.
Our pitching coach, but Coach O'Connor, obviously, and Coach Kevin McMullen.
And Coach Kirby's been on and off. I mean, Coach Kirby was there. He's back. He's back there. Coach Kirby's been there for a long time, too.
Yeah, so I didn't play with him, but he's been there for a long time as well. So that says a lot about a program. You have that same staff for over 20 years. But yeah, I always think of Coach Mack with what you just said. What I loved about him is he was like that. He was like a football coach,
Yeah.
and I absolutely loved it. Now, do some players maybe not respond well to that? Maybe, but I think they do a great job of knowing we're all idiosyncratic, we're all wired differently. So they have a good idea of what makes a player tick, and I think they've made adjustments through the time. And especially since I become their mental performance coach and been down there and interacting, I see like it's a little different how they go about things, but yeah, they get the most out of players and they find out what makes a player tick, how hard you got to push them to get the most out of them. But I think they do a great job there.
As you're going from high school then to college, did you change your routines much? I mean, you've got heads up baseball there, you've got the mental game of baseball. Did you change many of your routines once you got to college?
Yes, not for the better though. When I first got there, I had that good senior year, could have gone to almost any college, go to UVA, thought I was exonerated. I tell this story that, a while back, a mentor taught me, Randy, you're never going to be exonerated from three things: pain, uncertainty, and hard work. I thought I was exonerated. I had so much uncertainty those first 3 years at Herndon High School. Now I have certainty. I'm at UVA, a good D1 school. I'm good. I trained my mindset. I'm good now. It's like riding a bike. I trained it once. I'm good. But the fact of the matter is, it's just like hitting up the gym. You don't go to the gym, you don't use it, you lose it. So I didn't use it. I thought I was all set. So freshman year, didn't start right away. Eventually started to play. Had a very okay freshman year. Almost got kicked off the team actually. So just getting acclimated, changing those routines, getting back and recommitting to the mental side of the game is what really helped those next 2 years. And like you talk about, getting back into set routines, time management, energy management, all of this stuff combined is what really helped me stop that spiral that happened freshman year of spiraling down, catch myself, get away from that feeling. I was already to a place where I don't need to feel pain anymore, the uncertainty is going to go away. I don't need to work hard on the mental game. There's no there for anybody. I don't care who we are. So I stopped it, spiraled back up, and had pretty good years the next two
Was
years.
that off the field or on the field issues where you almost get kicked off?
That was off the field.
That's usually the first. That's I would tell our players that all the time. I'm like, there's a few things that if you get into it, it's going to get you out of baseball the quickest, and these are the things that you want to try to stay away from if you can, because they get you out of baseball in a hurry.
Yeah, it's an adjustment getting to college, and you see all this. You're on your own. You make your own decisions and parties, all this
Yeah.
stuff. So yeah, but I had to go through it.
It's
I'm
called the
glad I
fresh
did.
start effect. That's one of the things that I talk about in my presentation with habit building. It's called the fresh start effect. And so when I try to relay this to coaches, whether you're a high school coach or a college coach, when someone goes to a new environment and their environment's completely thrown off, they develop habits quicker. So their neural pathways reset so you can develop habits
Hmm.
quicker. So it could be good habits, but it also could be bad habits. And that's what you see on both ends of it. So as a coach, you need to try to get a hold of your young players as soon as you can, as soon as they get on campus, because they could get into bad habits too. So you've got to try to get on top of them to help them develop habits quicker.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with that, without a doubt.
Billy Swope drafted you?
He did. Hmm.
Still doing it. I still see him. I still see him over in Cary. He's still
Is he
doing
still
it.
with the Cubs?
Yep, he's still doing it.
Wow, that's been
Yeah.
a long time.
Yep. Oh yeah. You
Oh,
know,
that's awesome. Love
do you
that guy.
do you feel like you learned more from your teammates than you did from your coaches?
Uh, Throughout my career,
Yes.
it's a good question. Yes, and is my answer. I think yes, I learned a ton, and I learned a ton from both. Fortunate in the throughout every level to play with some great teammates, and I tried to have this humility where I didn't think I had it all figured out. I was constantly looking to learn and grow. And when I say in high school I had that fixed mindset, I thought that what I had was set in stone, nothing I can do about it. But once I started to develop and cultivate that growth mindset and continue to look for new ways to get better and optimize every single facet of my life, that's when I was asking questions to coaches, asking questions to teammates, watching them, seeing, yeah, I know success leaves clues. So what made this person successful? If it's making him successful, it can make me successful. So constantly looking for new ways. So my answer to you is, man, learn so much from both sides, players and coaches.
This is a fine line, and with from a growth mindset standpoint, how do you kind of know, okay, foundationally, this is working for me, but now I may have to make an adjustment. Because I think there's certain things that I still use that I've used for 20 years, but then I've layered new things on top of that. How do you know that as a person? Like, okay, this is working, but maybe I need to make an adjustment on some other things too.
I think embodying the virtue of curiosity.
Yeah.
It's one of the top virtues modern day positive psychology has said is most, important for our overall flourishing and well-being. And so what they say, I'm going to listen to because science has proven it. So curiosity, what's
Ted
working
Lasso.
well? Yeah, what's working well? What's not working? Okay, what based on what's not working, what do I need to do to fix it? So what I tell all athletes, bring a flashlight and a hammer to the party. So a lot of times athletes, I was guilty of this, we bring the hammer and we shame ourselves. What that lead to? Lack of confidence and self-doubt. So let's bring the flashlight, shine a bright light on what needs work, what's working, that self-awareness piece. Really get curious about it. Don't just do it real quick, get curious, and then bring the hammer of discipline. Flashlight shows you what you need to fix. Then you bring that hammer, but it's a hammer of discipline, not a hammer of shame. And then when you do that, you get to work. So I'm not here to change how athletes think. I'm here to change how they act and how they live, knowing that when they have new behaviors, that leads to the results they're after. Too many young athletes, and I used to be guilty of this, let their feelings drive the show. And then their feelings lead to weak behaviors and a weak identity. When we get them know who they are at their best and what they do when they're at their best, they have this strong identity on and off the field. Literally, they name it. They gave it a name. I'm a world-class athlete on the field. I'm a world-class person off the field. Then they have top behaviors that they follow, and that leads to the feelings and results they're after. So what I would say to answer your question is virtue of curiosity, bring that flashlight and a hammer.
Then you get to the minors. What's the next step of routine changes for you then when you get to the minor leagues and then fortunate enough to make it to the big leagues?
Well, I got drafted by Billy Swope. Talking about him, he was the only guy that would give me a chance. I dislocated my shoulder 2 days before
Yeah, but it was
the
fifth or sixth round, wasn't it?
fifth round.
That's not taking a chance. The fifth round means
Meaning
you
no
got a
other
chance to
team.
make it.
No other team.
Yeah, but it only
said
takes
they
one.
would.
It only takes one to
Yep.
believe in you.
I dislocated my shoulder sliding into Mitch Canham, the catcher for Oregon State in
Yep.
our regional. Because we had Sean Doolittle, all the scouts were there.
Yep.
Dislocated it, came out of the game, couldn't move it. Pretty much needed surgery. No one was gonna, but Billy Swopes, we're still gonna take him. There's too many red flags for other teams, so I was expecting to go back senior year. So he drafted me. So that first 3-4 months, I'm just rehabbing my shoulder. So I'm
Hey,
getting
did
to
that
pro
bang your
ball.
signing bonus back at all because you were banged up?
It was still pretty much slot.
It was slot.
Mm-hmm.
But that's
So thank you,
Billy.
Billy.
Thank you, Billy. And that's the type of person that Billy is. Like
Yeah.
he wasn't gonna screw you just because you were banged up. He was gonna take care of
Mm-hmm.
you. Billy's the best.
Yeah. Yeah. So get in minor ball. Once I got healthy, I went and man, that dislocated shoulder is my lead shoulder hitting. It took a year or so to get back. And then I actually had an all right year. My second year, they skipped me high A. I go to double A and literally hit rock bottom. I become, after 200 at bats, I was hitting 180. I was playing for Ryan Sandberg in double A Tennessee Smokies. They send me down to back to high A. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me because now the rest of my career, that was rock bottom, and I bounced back and became the Cubs minor league player of the year the very next year. So in my head, I was like, wow, I came back from that. I can come back from anything. So glad. That's why there's so many silver linings to these obstacles and struggles that come our way. It's not that it's not going to happen. It's going to happen to everybody. It's how you respond to it. And it's all about having that grit, intense passion, intense perseverance, like Angela Duckworth talks about in her great book, Grit. And when you have that and effort counts twice, and that what you're born with is just the starting point, your beliefs change, your mindset change, and you really can notice that and realize and feel anything is possible. So,
And they always
yeah.
say that the double A jump is the hardest jump. Was it the pitching? Obviously, your guys are throwing harder, but their command of their secondary stuff gets tightened up. Correct?
Yeah, the competition gap shrunk, the game sped up. And the thing is, when I got to UVA, I talked freshman year, I stopped training the mindset. I continued to train it throughout the minor league. So it wasn't like I stopped and I felt I was exonerated. No, I continued to train it. It just goes to show it's part of the process. It's part of the journey that you need to go through times like that. So it just happened because it happened. I think one thing, I was playing with guys who I didn't really know the comfortability factor, get to double A. I see all these big time arms, and I wasn't playing every day. It was a challenge. But I'm going to just repeat myself on purpose. Glad it happened and it needed to happen.
Being a role player, though, a little easier to train, though, correct? I mean, you can get a little more time in the weight room if you're not playing as much, too, though, correct?
Yeah, you can. And that was a huge adjustment getting to the big leagues. For the most part, especially after that year, I was playing every single day in the minor leagues. So then I get up with the Rays and I'm become this platoon guy. I'm a right-handed hitter just for pretty much just facing lefties. Every now and then they would throw me a bone and let me face a righty. And that became a mental grind because it's like, okay, they're finally giving me a righty. I better have a good game. So trying to get out of that mindset, that's a whole nother story. But that platoon, it's rough. When you're playing this game every day, it's hard. When you're playing 3 times a week, it becomes really hard. And that's where a tool such as visualization or mental imagery, whatever you want to call it, comes in handy because science has proven what we vividly imagine, deep, vividly imagine, closing our eyes and do it. It's the same thing to our brain as what we physically do. So any player out there who's not playing all the time, get those mental reps in. Also get physical reps. Stand in on bullpens so you can track balls and really train your eyes and get in rhythm with the pitchers. So that was one of the biggest challenges, getting adjusted to not playing every day, being that platoon hitter. It's one of the hardest things to do. That coming off the bench to pinch hit takes a lot. It takes a lot, and
I still
yeah.
think that's the best video, the E60 video with Ravizza, Longoria, and
Hmm.
Madden. Like, that's still the best because it shows when Longoria was hurt that he was still taking mental at bats. Wherever his spot in
Yeah.
the lineup was, he was still taking mental at bats, even though he was dinged up. And
Hmm.
I mean, how fortunate were you to get traded to the Rays? Because I think, I think Madden and you said Francona. I think those are two of the best that we've had. I really liked Mike Scioscia too. I think those are the two of the
Yeah.
best that we've had in the last 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. So I get traded to the Rays and I see the author of this book. And I get to say, hey, Ken, 7 years ago, you changed my life when I read that book and the trajectory of my career. Thank you. And then the goat of mental performance, him and Dorfman, you could call, they're the best. Got to work with him one on one, really lock in my breath, my pre pitch routine, my in game routines where the mental game lives. Get to control my emotions so I can control my performance, which is one of his famous quotes he would say all the time. So yeah, getting traded there was a blessing. Getting to work with him, and Joe was always into that. And then you bring up Francona. He's one of those guys where he's the same no matter what. He always has your back. He's always building you up. He's not tearing you down. So fortunate to play with both of them.
How are you handling? Are you taking any supplements? I mean, big league schedule's long, and maybe sleep's not always there because the travel, nutrition gets hard. Were you mixing supplements in with what you were doing?
Yeah, good question. And you talking about sleep is huge because I believe that's the number one performance enhancer
Yes.
for any athlete out there, sleep. So supplement wise, I was big on that. Actually, I've been into nutrition forever. When I retired, I actually became a sports nutritionist as well. Funny story, before I get into supplements, when I traveled on road trips, whether it was in the minors or in the big leagues, I had a carry-on bag,
Love it.
but it wasn't clothes. It was just healthy snacks and food and supplements. And a
Love
lot of people gave me crap, but when they got hungry, they came to me. But I just
it.
knew that in the clubhouse there wasn't good food, and we're machines. If we want to feel good and have better focus and emotional control, we got to fuel our machine correctly. So I was always into that. And then supplement wise, like you asked, yeah, like whey protein. I think creatine. There's so
Those are
many
my two
studies showing
still
the
that I
positive.
use. I still
Yeah,
use whey protein and creatine. I still use both.
creatine, yeah,
So
so good. A greens powder is something else because it's hard to get good nutrition when you're traveling all the time. So athletic greens is a greens powder I really recommend. Some melatonin. I'm not telling everyone to take this stuff, but I'm just trying to say what I take.
yes, and that's
So
why I asked from a, it's all anecdotal. It's what works for the individual. So my
mhm,
what works for you may not work for somebody, but those are the same ones that I've taken over the years too. So I think
mhm.
I'm still doing okay with
Yeah,
those.
they definitely help a lot. And then there's this one supplement out there. And trust me, I know I got to be careful with this because especially
Yeah.
the pro
Yes.
level, you
Yeah.
have to be
For
NSF,
sure.
make sure it's quality
Yes.
and don't want, all that stuff. But for focus and really getting locked in, this supplement called Alpha Brain.
Yeah.
by a company called On It.
Joe
I
Rogan,
remember getting
big
traded.
big Joe Rogan.
Yeah, yeah, getting traded to the Indians on that playoff run in 16. A lot of us would be taking Alpha Brain before the games. So that's another thing. There's a lot of different
It's in the
supplements, but once again,
nootropics. It's in that
yes,
that family.
yep,
It's a
yes,
neurocognitive enhancer.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You said at the youth summit, you're talking about Jeter, and you have to see it before you do it. Was that one of the things that maybe helped you jumping from the minors to the big leagues? Is actually seeing yourself being there?
Yeah, that visualization.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you get into that moment, then it's like, oh, I feel like I've been here. It doesn't mean success, but it means you're putting yourself in that best position. So, quick backstory: this when we played the Cubs in the 2016 World Series here, never faced a Aroldis Chapman in my career, and so I knew going into that at bat, if I want, I was being a left-handed pitcher, me being a right-handed hitter, I was going to face him a good amount. And if I wanted to put myself in the best position to succeed, I had to get mental reps against him. In every situation, I would even go as far as I'm not even playing, a hitter's hitting, and he pulls an oblique during the at bat. So I got to go in mid at bat and face him. But then also, game seven, bottom of the eighth, 2 outs, when I did face him, got down 0-2. Cool. Do my pre pitch routine with my breath while looking at my bat. I feel like I've been there. Okay, I've been 0-2 in my head. Let's go. Bring it on. Bring it, got it to 3-2, hit the RBI double. But without a doubt, there's no way the comfortability factor, the free and loose factor would have been there if I didn't have that visualization and feel like I had already been there in my head before. And then lastly, before I finish that, it's what I was saying to myself on deck and in the box. On deck, my heart is racing. And I learned this way back. When I'm feeling that, it's how we perceive it. So when I was younger, I would perceive that as, why am I nervous? This isn't good. Go away. Instead, then I learned to change it. Oh, thank you, body. You're priming me to perform. I'm not nervous. I'm excited. So then I use my breath. I say I'm excited. And then the 3 words, I literally said, walking to the plate. Bring it on, Chapman. This is what I trained for. And you have this free and loose feeling when you really cultivate win or learn mindset. So you're going to go up and have success, or you're going to learn. It's not lose. So I didn't think, oh, if I don't come through in the biggest at bat of my life, I'm a failure. I'm all this. None of that was going through my mind. And once again, this is only going to put us in a better position to succeed. It does not in any way guarantee success. But if you can just compete with all you've got every pitch, that's all you can ask for.
It's called a lizard brain. So, we have the same neural wiring that we've had since we were cavemen. So the brain is going to scan your environment for danger. Like, even though we don't have to worry about getting eaten by a dinosaur now, it's still the same wiring that we're working for. So your brain's going to scan for danger in your environment. And so that's what happens with that anxiety is, your brain is perceiving it as a dangerous situation. And that's where you have to practice this all the time, because that anxiety you feel is actually great for performance if you can get going in the right direction. You need that. Like, if you don't have that anxiety, your performance is going to be flat. So, you need it, but you have to train yourself to know that, okay, I'm not in danger right now. This is just an exciting opportunity for me to go out and perform.
Dude, so spot on. And I feel like a lot of people get nervous about being nervous. And I remember hearing a quote, anxiety is excitement without the breath.
Yeah.
So it's excitement without the breath, and then it's changing how you're talking to yourself at the same time.
And by the way, nobody knows if you're nervous. By the way, nobody, they don't know what's inside. They have no idea what's going inside of you. So nobody knows if you're nervous or not.
Exactly. So then it becomes, how am I going to perceive this right here? I'm approaching adversity, or I'm stepping out of my comfort zone, or I feel fear, or I fear anxiety. Now you have the choice. It's a choice point. Are you going to let it get the best of you, or do you have a tool and have you been applying it and training it in practice so you can get in game? You can say, just like practice. And when you do that, it goes from tense and tight to free and loose. And I forget the quote Navy SEALs say, something along the lines of, you don't rise to the occasion, you sink to the level of your training.
Yep.
It's everything. So have you been training and practice? A big thing with UVA I've been going over is in bullpen, in cage work, practice that pre-pitch routine so it becomes autopilot. You don't need to think about it, you just do it, but you need to get a lot of reps to do that. So that's why practicing, like you said, getting as much as you can before you actually get in the game. So when those moments arise, not if, but when they do, you have tools to go to handle it.
You know, you have your second Tommy John surgery. Did you? I know you tried to play a little bit after that, correct? After your second one,
I did. Yeah.
you know, and get released. I mean, was that kind of the okay? I need to move on to something else here, or were you going to continue to try to go?
No. So it all started that shift heading into senior year in high school. I saw what the mindset change did. So towards the end of my career, even a little bit before that, I knew when it was done what I wanted to do. It was to use the gauntlet that I went through, all the mental obstacles, fear, performance anxiety, dealing with the yips on and off throughout my career, getting hit all the time, becoming all-time leader hit by pitches per plate appearance in MLB history. I went through this gauntlet. I better use this platform. I better use the wisdom and compile a system that's going to empower athletes to be better. So that's how I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I retired. So I'm combining my close to a decade in the big leagues with learning one-on-one with Ken Ravizza, learning from Brian Kane, and a system that I don't believe any, I say this in a very humble way, that I don't think many out there have, where they can combine that. So that's why I knew right away when I retired, I'm all in. Could I have continued to play? For sure. I feel like I can still play right now, but I don't want to because this is my calling and this is what I'm dedicating my post playing career to.
How did you work through the yips?
It's challenging. And
It's
so when
tough because
people
I
come to
went
me,
through it a little bit too. You know,
a lot of people, dude,
there's
so many
neural
people.
rewiring exercises now. Scott Fox was on the podcast with me, and then he did a Barnstormers event for us at the Nats Youth Academy. So he actually took
Mhm,
that crew. That video is really good on our website with the neural
mhm,
rewiring exercises he
mhm,
takes kids through because that's shown tapping, all of the things, skills that are out there. It gets your
mhm,
neural pathways rewired where you're thinking on
mhm.
the side of your brain you're supposed to. Like that's what happens.
Yes.
But a lot of that's an injury thing too. Like people don't talk about that as much. You get banged up, you start
Mhm.
throwing. You know, it's not your normal throwing mechanics. So that happens a lot after injuries for kids. A lot.
Dude, a lot more people, because people don't like to talk about it, deal with that.
Yes.
So for me, it really started. I had 2012 or 13. I was bunting a ball in with AAA Durham Bulls. The ball hit me here, slashed my finger, had to get stitches, and then for a while I didn't have feeling there. So I'm throwing the ball. I make a couple horrible throws, and boom, it
Yep.
gets in my mind.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, the worst part, the long throws, fine for the most part. It's warming up in between innings. When I'm warming up with Kevin Kiermaier or Desmond Jennings when I was with the Rays,
Yep.
that's what terrified me the most. I'm 30 feet away. I'm bouncing balls. I'm throwing it over his head. And all I'm thinking is, people in the crowd are, this big leaguer can't even throw it 30 feet. And so it was tough. But I went back to my philosophy or my tools. Visualization, that's that neuroplasticity. You're rewiring your brain. Every choice throughout the day, we're rewiring for the good or for the bad. So I did a lot of visualization, changed the self-talk. At the beginning, when it first happened, all I'm thinking is, oh God, just throw it good. Don't one hop him. It was like that hidden mission, like
Yep.
people talk about. Don't throw it over his head. Instead of just play catch, throw it. Like when players go up and they strike out their first two at bats in the game, that third at bat, a lot of players have a hidden mission of just put the ball in play, don't strike out, rather than I'm going up there to crush this ball. It's a completely different mindset.
Yeah,
So
the
I had that
focus needs to
self
go
talk.
from internal to external. Like that's a way to get
Mm-hmm.
out of it. Okay, no longer like what am I doing? It's okay. I'm gonna pick out a spot. If I'm playing catch with Kevin Kiermaier, I'm gonna pick out a
Mm-hmm.
spot on his chest. I'm gonna try to throw it as hard as I can through his chest, and I'm gonna get
Mm-hmm.
external on this, and that's a way to get out of it. But it's hard, man. Like if
It's
somebody knew
hard.
how to keep kids away from that, but that's why I said with Scott Fox, like his neural
Mm-hmm.
rewiring exercises, he calls it. We're trying to stop filling cavities. So we need to have
Mm-hmm.
a maintenance program every day of doing these practices and these exercises so we don't get to that
Mm-hmm.
point. But again,
Mm-hmm.
it's like anything
Mm-hmm.
else. You have to have those skills and you have to learn those skills. But once you get a
Mm-hmm.
maintenance program involved, you talked about Oregon State. That was the first time you saw their first national championship. You would see their pitchers tapping in the dugout in between innings, and so like that was the first time you
Mm-hmm.
actually saw it. And that was I think 2003 where you actually saw a
Hmm.
pitcher in between innings doing tapping in the dugout to again, that's a keep the pathways moving in the right direction.
Speaking of in the dugout, I remember Cal State Fullerton. I think they won the championship in 2004. I'm watching that game on the College World Series, and you go, they'd have a little toilet in the helmet rack.
Yep.
They would go there and flush. I'm like, what the heck is happening? Finally, a reporter talked about it, how I think Ken Ravizza was working with them. That was their routine,
Yeah.
flush it routine. Negativity comes, let's flush it. Let's learn from it, flush it away, get back to flip the switch, get back to the present moment. So that's huge having routines like that. But one quick thing
I
about
still had ours from Brian Kane. I mean, we had the mini one when I was at Iowa and then Western Illinois. We had the mini toilet too that we got from
mhm.
Kaner.
Love it, man. Those that's where the mental game lives. So having those routines in game, that's probably the most important time to have set routines. Back to visualization. Self-talk, I think, is everything. It's the number one thing in our control, and it's going to help that external focus like you're talking about. I always like to think of the two wolves, like which one are you feeding? They're battling all day, every day. Good, bad, powerful, powerless, positive, negative. Which one are you taking control of in feeding, and which one are you starving? And that makes a huge difference of what stacking odds in your favor or stacking odds against you. So early on with those yips, when it first started to happen, I'm feeding that negative, fearful, powerless wolf because that's all I'm thinking about is messing up, and changing that self-talk and really feeding that powerful wolf helped a lot. And a quick story about that. Brad Miller came on the Major League Mindset program a couple months ago. He was telling a story when he was at Clemson in 2009 or 10. His sophomore year, he was statistically the worst shortstop in the nation. He led the nation in errors. Junior year, he won the Brooks Wallace Award for the top shortstop in the nation. So I asked Brad, what did you change? He said, dude, nothing physically, my self-talk. I would be in big games and ACC games sophomore year when I led the nation in errors. Don't hit the ball to me. I don't want to make an error. Just don't boot it. Don't mess it up. Junior year, I said, I'm a vacuum. Vroom, vroom, hit the ball to me. So we went from defensive to offensive and attack mentality. He changed how he talked to himself. And that's what led him. And he's going into his 10th year in the big leagues right now. So that's the power of self talk and
Hit it
really
to me,
taking
I think, is the
control.
best verbal. I've said that. Hit it to me is the best defensive verbal pre-pitch that you can tell yourself. Hit it to me. It gets you aggressive and anticipating the ball coming to you, and
Mm-hmm.
allows you to flow
Mm-hmm.
through errors and mistakes. And hit it to me, I think, is the best pre-pitch saying that you can say. Hey, any
Without a doubt.
depression once you got finished? I mean, once you're done playing and baseball gets taken away from you, did you deal with any depression at all?
Man, I'm so fortunate. I already knew what I wanted to do, and not at all, not at all. And a big part of that, because I know this stuff is huge nowadays with sports and off the field. I mean, suicide rates are at the highest ever. It's a challenging time. That's why, and what I try to get across to kids and parents, I'm not just trying to make you a better player. I'm trying to make you a better person.
I've
And
told
all the
coaches you're saving
training.
lives with all this stuff. You're saving lives, and just for
Mhm.
people listening in, it's in my presentation. In 2020, there were 47,000 suicides. There were
Mm,
24,000 gun deaths. Now,
mhm,
80% of those gun deaths are suicides, and
mm,
70% of it's white males from the 14 to 24-year-old range and the
mm,
44 to 55-year-old range. So,
mhm.
70% of that 47 is white males. And so I try to tell coaches, I'm like, hey, with this stuff, it's not just an on the field thing, it's an off the field thing from a mental health component where you need to
Yeah,
introduce this stuff to your players because you are going to save somebody's life at some point. The last couple of years
yeah.
at Western Illinois, I was walking more players to our counseling center than I ever had before. And so we would have our counseling center come in and talk to our team. That was one of
Mm.
our classroom sessions. Is our counseling center
Huge.
would come and talk to our team. That way, they knew who the counselors were, and then we would walk them to the counseling center so they knew. Okay, here's where you go if you're struggling. This is the place where you need to go.
Hmm. Man, that's huge. I wish every team would do that,
It's,
And when you bring that up, speaking of just being intrinsically motivated to be a better person, to create meaningful relationships, to be a better service to the community, that's what too many athletes are playing the wrong game and extrinsically motivated for fame and social media followers and wealth, thinking that when they get that, they're going to be happy. Science has proven, whether it's with lottery winners or whatever it is, that doesn't bring happiness. It's internally motivated. And then a lot of that extrinsic stuff comes your way. And I always think of this book, Legacy by James Kerr. He details the All Blacks rugby team, the winning highest, best sports franchise of all time, winning percentage wise at 86%. Their motto is better. people make better All Blacks. So better people make better baseball players, make better softball players, and the same skills and tools and character they're going to develop and mindset they're going to develop that's going to help them thrive and flourish off the field, then directly translates those same skills, tools, character, and mindset, help them thrive and handle the tough times that are going to come their way off the field. So it's more important now than it ever has been, without a doubt.
Hey, who nudged you to do this? Because this is tremendous, by the way. Who nudged you to do the workbook?
Who nudged me? I'm trying to think. So I went through a coaching program called Optimize. It's now called Heroic, and they had a lot of worksheets. And I actually have a whole workbook. Look at my stack of workbooks. I was
Love it.
big pen to paper, so hundreds of worksheets. I would write stuff down, and then I reached out to them, and I was like, "Who did you use for these?" And so they put me in touch with a lady named Yasmin from Germany. She's a visual design expert. So I teamed up with her, brought the program to life. I know that a lot of players are visual learners. So that's really how I
I like the
got
simplicity of it. I like the visuals, and it's very good. It's very professional. It looks tremendous. So
appreciate that. Thank you.
tremendous. Hey, talk about your tattoos. Yeah, I'm not in that generation, but I think we are in that generation now where tattoos speak to people. And so, I never could pull the trigger on one. I probably would have gotten one if something would have spoke to me. But talk about your tattoos a little bit.
Yeah, so the one main tattoo is a reminder to me to practice my philosophy. So it's the one word that could summarize the entire Major League Mindset program. It's a Greek word, arete. It means excellence if you were to Google it. But I've come to learn the deeper definition of it means to express the best version of yourself, moment to moment to moment. But the key is never perfectly, but more and more consistently. So helping athletes, who are you at your best? What do you do when you're at your best? Okay, let's connect with, let's embody, let's act and live like that version of us, knowing we're not going to be perfect. But when we do that, we show up at our best more consistently. And then the ultimate game I talk about is closing the gap, who you're capable as a person and player and who you're actually being. When that gap is wide because of behaviors or habits or lifestyle choices, regret, depression, mental health concerns, poor performance lies, because you're capable of this, but you're actually being this. So then when you live with arete, in excellence, but really master the process of closing the gap as you express that best version of yourself, that's what happens. And really, I put it here for that constant reminder to me when I'm home with my 3 young kids and my wife at the end of the day, when I'm not being, I feel like I'm not connected to that best version. I'm being off. I'm not being patient. I really look at it and I touch it and I just connect with my best version. So athletes, when they come through the program, if they don't get this wristband that has all the mantras on it, they write under their hat. One of the most popular is them writing arete. I've had players stitch arete in their Rawlings glove. I've had them create license plates on their cars that say arete. So many kid got a tattoo arete. So that one word, I just kind of wanted to talk about this tattoo because it's changed my life learning about it and trying to embody it. So
When did
really
you have that on? When did you have that put on? What year?
2 years ago.
2 years ago, so it's recent.
Yeah, I got a tattoo.
What age was your
before
first?
that. I knew
What
about
age
it,
was
but I
your
would just
first
write
one?
it.
What age was your first tattoo?
Senior year in high school, I actually got baseball seams.
Yep.
You can see them right here.
Yep.
And that's all I had for a while, and then I added stuff to this. But yeah, that was my first one, senior year of high school.
I always ask about fail forward moments, and like you've had a lot of them. We've talked about a million of your fail forward moments already. Do you feel like, Tommy John at 12, where you have to handle adversity, do you feel like that helped you getting a taste of adversity at a really young age?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think that was the first taste of true, real adversity. I always go back to, I think, the first 3 years at Herndon High School when, football wise, I was doing pretty good, but baseball wise. And then my identity, I talked about being a perfectionist with a fixed mindset and no identity. I struggled off the field big time those 3 years too, because I was just my identity. I'm just beast athlete. That's all I am. So then when I struggled on the field, directly translated off the field. I wasn't fun to be around. Schoolwork, struggled, all that stuff. And so but going through that, if I didn't, I don't know if I would have ever gotten as deep into the mental game and overall mindset and mental fitness or mental health, whatever you want to call it, that I did. So of all the fail forward moments, it's those first 3 years of Herndon that always stick out to me.
Did you continue to work out after you were done playing, or did you shut working out down for a while?
No, never. I'm a huge believer that physiology drives psychology
Yep.
way more than people think.
Yep.
So we want to be strong mentally, we got to be strong physically. So
Yep.
no, I've been doing Spartan races. I feel like personally I'm in the best shape I've ever been in. I do the cold tub every night. I'm all in. I'm
Yeah, I always
obsessed with
ask
this stuff.
routine. So, go through your cold tub protocol.
Hmm. So basically every day, after I work out, I first go into the sauna at 158 for about 20 minutes. So I do a hot cold contrast. Then I walk out, get in the cold tub for 5 minutes, 26 seconds at 41 degrees,
Love it.
if I'm going to be exact. And then sometimes I go back in the or the sauna and then go back in the cold tub, or I just finish in the shower. So that's how that is.
Hey, what lets you know you're going to get back in? You're going to go another round.
I just try to do it 2, 3 times a week like that.
Yep.
It's not based on how I'm feeling because I never want to get in that cold tub. And I don't. It's freaking cold. I set it as low as you can possibly get it on this one. I know some go lower, but this is low. So that's where the actions over feelings
Yes.
and this on my wristband, bring it on, and acting in the presence of fear, getting uncomfortable, trying to get as uncomfortable as I possibly can, as much as I can in life, because it's going
And
to
that's
help
a
with that.
dopamine thing too. The hard part with humans now is everyone is on a dopamine deficit through phones, and so the cold exposure is a way to get your
Mhm.
dopamine levels back.
Mm,
And it shows that it's the uncomfortable piece is what brings about the dopamine hit.
mhm,
So everybody wants to focus on dopamine as a pleasure. It's
mhm,
actually more related to a pain response than it is to a pleasure
mm.
response. So if you're dragging, try to get yourself in an uncomfortable situation, and it'll probably increase your dopamine.
Yeah, a lot of times you jump out of there, you feel like a different person. I don't know
Yes.
many people besides maybe Wim Hof that want to go into the cold
Yeah, but
intentionally.
again, that's a training thing with him too. He's been doing it forever. Like he's used to
Hmm.
it, and his breathing
Yeah.
exercises do work. Like if you're going to do cold
Oh.
exposure, those things
Hmm.
prepare you to get into cold exposure. Like his breathing
Hmm.
is awesome.
Yes,
Awesome.
without a doubt.
What other resources, especially we got some young parents, players listening in, what other resources should they dive into?
Ooh, good question. The books we talked about, Brian Keane has a great mental performance podcast, daily podcast. I would recommend that. Who else has great podcasts? Zach Sorensen, he's a former big leaguer, has a great podcast.
Played
Man, there's
against
so
Zach in college. He was at Wichita when I was at Evansville.
Yes, yes. So he has a great podcast. There's so many good resources out there. That's a good thing about, back in 2004, there was Heads Up Baseball and some Harvey Dorfman stuff. It wasn't really talked about. People didn't like to talk about mindset. It was like you're showing weakness kind of thing. But nowadays it's talked about so much. So what I would say, whether it's fear, anxiety, anything holding you back, talk about it,
Yep.
reach out, to someone, have a support system. Don't let it just fester inside of you. And know deep down, you can train your mind just like you train your body. It takes effort, it takes structured training, but you can do it. And on the other side of it is something special. So that's what I would say.
What are some final thoughts or something I should have asked you that I didn't?
Oh man, good question. I don't know. I don't know. I
Okay,
think
good.
dude, you nailed everything. Maybe I'll talk about confidence. Can I talk
Yeah,
about
for
that?
sure. Yes. Okay.
So confidence is obviously every athlete and every person in general, they perform better when they feel confident. But the thing is, we rely on feeling confident instead of creating confidence. So confidence, it comes from a Latin word confidere, which means intense trust. But that kind of intense trust isn't given. Athletes, ball players, they need to earn it. And I believe they earn it by learning how to fail well, by approaching fear and saying, bring it on, by stepping out of their comfort zone, by having set routines, by eating and sleeping and breathing and having great overall self-discipline, by controlling the controllables, and then by living with arte and closing the gap. You earn that trust by doing what you say. So if you say you're going to do something and you do it, just like in any relationship, you become impeccable with your word with yourself. You earn trust in yourself. A lot of young athletes rely on results for confidence. I've been there plenty of times, but we can get to the point where we show up and we do the hard when many want to do the easy. Then we create confidence, and that spiral that happens. Or with UVA last week, I talked about the equilibrium game. No matter who you are, you're going to get knocked off center. The best of the best get back to center better than the rest. So do you have the confidence? Do you have the mindset? Do you have the tools needed to help you get back to center and spiral back up? So just knowing confidence, we don't need to rely. It's not really a feeling. It's something you do. It's that your actions that you take. So I want to just talk about the confidence piece real quick.
Brandon, appreciate you jumping on with me, man. This is tremendous. So thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Ron. Great to see you.